Serious, friends of psychopaths/sociopaths, how did you realize your friend wasn't normal? U/Stooltoad9 responded. He could not comprehend the difference between harmless pranks and cruelty, which manifested in high school. Got so far that he broke into a friend's home, stole her TV, then got angry that her family called the police over a prank. Trying to talk to him about the difference between pranks and crime was met by a blank stare, almost confusion, followed by vicious mocking. I didn't see him much after that, then completely cut ties with him after he started casually talking about raping women. U/radiant_teaching_888 responded. We were in high school. I finally called her out for manipulating and bullying people into being her friend, including me, after she had told the whole school I was pregnant. I wasn't, and as this was a small, very religious school, it took a good amount of effort to dissolve those rumors. In retaliation, she accused my mother of slapping her when she came to our house to apologize. For many reasons, this was absolutely false. My parents and I decided I would move schools the next semester to remove us from her. My first day of school, she came running up to me grinning, going on an excited tangent about how she had told her mother she wanted to switch schools too so she could be with me. It took me another 2 years and intervention from the school after my mother and I built up a good amount of evidence for her to finally be told if she didn't leave me alone she would have consequences. We were going to go to the police accusing her for stalking and harassment. That threat was enough to finally get her mother to agree to have her leave me alone. Prior to that she was insistent that we were best friends and her daughter never did anything wrong. U/Horstvind responded. He was very open with it. That guy was genuinely helpful. What he seemed to fear the most was to regress into a helpless person who couldn't fit into society, like the psychopaths that go in and out of jail. So, he made it a habit or a challenge to help at least one person with something every day with no strings attached, friends or strangers, as practice, to hold himself accountable. It was a bit weird, and he was kinda weird too, but he was open about it in advance so that he'd have a harder time screwing us over if ever he had a relapse in willpower. It was definitely a bit of an ego thing, I think. He liked the role of being a nice, friendly person who overcame his shortcomings. I hope he really did. I know his motivation was a bit unusual, but LVE never met someone as helpful as that guy. He wasn't afraid of anything. He'd do dangerous stuff like remove wasp nests from his neighbor's porch as casually as he'd help an old lady carry her groceries to her car. Cool dude, with some crazy stories. U/Sanguineutron responded. We were friends with him and his sister. We later realized when we could only see anger in him and pretty much nothing else. That was the first flag. One of the friends started dating the sister and he came to us one day and told us that our friend has taken him aside and told him that if his sister was hurt he would have no problem hurting him in turn. Our friend was terrified because he truly believed him. That was our second red flag. The final one was when his family got boned at an intersection and his dad and sister were killed, mom in the hospital for observation and him in there as well with some broken bones. He didn't seem to care at all when some buddies went to see him. The hospital was a teaching one with psychiatrists and all, and one came to see if he wanted help while he was there and he basically asked why would I need help. Mom agreed to a formal evaluation and he was confirmed psychopathic. His mom basically committed the rest of her life to make sure he could function in society. Taught him what societal right and wrong was and laws governing behavior and stuff. U/Stable Instability 1 responded. I wouldn't say friend, but we were in the same rehab program so we knew each other. The only emotion I ever saw him show was anger. And, boy, when he got angry, we knew to back off. He didn't bother to follow any of the rules or boundaries set by the counselors and group leaders. He didn't care if he said something offensive or hurtful. The biggest red flag though was when he said that he liked to kill animals. We were talking about coping skills or something, and he says that he likes killing animals when he gets mad. We kinda laughed at first, but then we realized he was serious. He then talked about all the animals he's killed and tells us that rabbits are his favorite, that he liked to watch them struggle. I guess he liked feeling powerful and in control. It's sad though because I know he experienced some incredibly traumatic stuff as a kid, but I still was freaked out around him. Last I heard, his parents sent him to a psychiatric residential facility. He was under 18, but I'm not sure why. U/Imhera4thermeter responded. I had a friend who always seemed a little off low empathy, but Elle ignored a lot of the signs. She was a destructive party girl with a weirdly hostile relationship with her mom, as in she was regularly hostile to her, and I noticed she could be a bit of a bully and thought of people as below her. I was a pretty vulnerable teen who always struggled making friends, so I tried to brush that stuff off because she was cool with me. There was a point where she got super drunk, slept with my boyfriend, and they called me together to mock me about it. It was humiliating. Like peak embarrassment. What's even more wild is the week after, she approached me as if nothing was wrong and it was all just a bit of fun. I knew she was a bad person when she called me, but I knew she had something deeply wrong with her when she had no self-awareness about the fact that an action like that would make me not want to be her friend. She seemed genuinely surprised that I was pushing her away. I have had some updates about her from mutual friends and it sounds like this is a pattern she continues to repeat in her adult life as well. She really treats everyone in her life like a disposable amusement and she's not smart enough to mask and manipulate them. Everything she does is extremely blunt and she doesn't seem to ever really care or register that it is hurtful. Losing friends also doesn't seem to bother her. She is never like, how dare you be mad at me. She just doesn't get why people are so sensitive. Hera responded. I'd always wondered about them. We were friends as teenagers because they were exciting to be around, they'd do anything, no matter how dangerous or embarrassing or stupid. As we got older I noticed that they still kept doing these things without care or consideration for others. They taunted me often, apparently just to see how LD react. Then one day their partner committed suicide and I tried offer support. They weren't upset that their 10-year-old had found the body. Then they revealed that they'd told their partner to kill themselves, just to see what would happen. We're no longer friends. You/Whitebed responded. I used to work for a sociopath. At first, he was incredibly nice. I honestly thought he was the best boss I ever had. He overpaid me, gave me lots of time off, and showered me with occasional gifts. There were many experiences along the way where his behavior was obviously questionable. At work, he had a habit of sending me into unsafe situations and not realizing that my well-being would be at risk. When an employee left for another job, he acted like they were pet goldfish that could be flushed down the toilet and replaced. I recall one occasion where I merely mentioned to him of an experience where a former co-worker and I visited a local distillery to grab a drink after work. My boss went on a tirade about that employee being unreliable and my boss repeated the notion that he knew he wasn't a long-term fit in the company. Keep in mind, my boss hired him. There were two final straws with my boss. The first occurred when he took me out for lunch one day and threw a temper tantrum at me in public. The second took place in a one-to-one meeting. He brought a knife and used it to intimidate me to force me to do what he wanted. Edit. I wanted to add, my boss just seemed to have a total disconnect from human emotion. It was as if he lacked an overall understanding that other people had thoughts and feelings too. He was incapable of realizing that he couldn't treat others like a pet, barking at us to do tricks at the snap of his finger. You/deleted responded. My uncle is a sociopath. That side of the family is messed up, so no one noticed for a long time that he wasn't normal. Took myself and my father, as outsiders, to finally realize he was completely incapable of real emotion. He just faked it. And faked it well. I could go on and on with sorties. The final straw with us was when my father went to work for him. Took a good year before he realized my entire uncle's business was a scam and possible outright fraud. This was pre-internet, so word of mouth got around really slow back then and so much money was basically stolen. Think of a massive Ponzi scheme. He eventually delivered on his promise but took 2 to 3 more suckers to get there. Eventually regulators came down on him. He lost wife number 2. Turned out all her money was tied to his business and her parents' money. All gone. We cut ties from him as well. Nothing was his fault. If you challenged him he turned on you fast. He is on wife number 3 now. From what we see via Facebook and some family still in contact, he tries one get-rich scheme after another. His online life is full of complete lies. Wife number 3 is also successful and he just leeches off of her. The frustrating part is if you dear Reddit user were to meet him in person you would like him, believe his stories completely and ask us why we were so mean to him. Yes, this has happened before. You/Horsegurg responded. I kept my horses at a local stable when I was a teenager and there was this man who was in his early mid-20s who kept a horse there. My horse trainer always said he was off but us teens liked him. Red flag that he wanted to be friends with. 12 to 16-year-olds LOL. The red flags for me popped up when he started being pretty nasty abusive to his horse. It made me super uncomfortable. He got married to a woman 15 years older than him and turns out he was molesting her children. He also kidnapped a teen out of a troubled teen facility and held him hostage for sex. He's in jail now. Edited to add, just found out he got killed in jail. You/Bohemian responded. He is a Christian therapist now. Grew up with him, dated briefly many years ago. 2020, 6 months after his wife ran away and divorced him, he messaged me saying he was sorry for hurting me all those years ago. Then he sent me videos of him fucking his pregnant ex-wife saying I wish this was us. Told me to take my son and leave my husband to be with him. Sent me this train of snaps how he wanted to piss down my throat, have a bunch of his babies so he could suck my nursing tits, while he got to fuck and flirt with other women, again Christian therapist. He is blocked, I'm all good. Edit to add trigger warning. U/traditional_self_658 responded. I have an ex that there was something seriously wrong with. I know everyone says that about their ex, but this was very different. He wasn't at all malicious, but he had no regard for other people at all, whatsoever. And he was extremely charming and skilled at lying. Highly intelligent. I didn't realize the extent of it until a while after we broke up. I was extremely shocked when he drugged his grandmother so that he could steal her car. He never seems to do anything for the sake of hurting people alone. He doesn't seem to derive any satisfaction from the act of causing harm. He's not like Ted Bundy or anything. But if that person is between him and whatever it is that he wants, he has no problem with doing whatever he needs to do to eliminate the problem. He only ever surrounded himself with people who are useful. If they aren't useful, he has utterly no interest in them. U/Bijou_X responded. I was in kindergarten and my mom worked at my school providing support for kids with behavioral problems. My best friend was this charming, sweet boy who was always really nice to me, if maybe a little quiet when other kids would come hang out with us. I never realized there was anything wrong with him, frankly. My mom, however, knew that he had bedwetting problems, he had been caught torturing animals, and he was in therapy for talking about setting his house on fire while his family slept. She put me in a new school because she was so afraid he would become fixated on me if she tried to stop us from being friends. She's worked with a lot of kids with a wide variety of shitty situations, but she says that kid is the only one who ever actually frightened her for his total lack of humanity. He was able to put on a very convincing act, but he didn't really care about anything. U/Aphid responded. My little sister, 27 years old, recently was diagnosed as a sociopath. Growing up, we always suspected she couldn't comprehend empathy. For example, as a young child, she would get bothered by the sound of someone's breathing and attempt to stop them breathing so she could enjoy silence. The only thing that mattered to her was her own comfort and validation, and she didn't seem understand anyone else wanted the same. She kept mostly silent her entire childhood and just observed and absorbed all human behaviors around her so she could mimic them. That resulted in her being able to manipulate everyone she comes into contact with. She lived off my parents until she tried to burn the house down as a punishment for them offending her, told her to register the car they bought her, because she equates a personal affront to burning them alive in their home. She currently is living off an asexual guy she's convinced to be her caretaker because sex is an annoying distraction she doesn't want to be bothered with. I love her to death, but it's difficult dealing with her and all the different versions of her other people know. She's a chameleon and it gets her what she wants, but I wonder how lonely it is to never have anyone truly know you. U/Ioazo responded. Even looking back, there were zero signs. Funny, charming, super smart, and no classic signs of gaslighting or manipulation that usually comes with the package. Then one day we're walking and Cat comes up to us, rubs on his leg and he just picks it up and throws it in the busy street. He casually smirks as we start screaming at him. One girl's throwing up in the bushes, another is calling her mom begging to be picked up. All around just fucked up scenario. I was friends with Guy for 3 years before that day. Haven't spoken to him since, and from what I hear he has been extremely normal since then. But I just know now he's not right. U/Drowning Felix responded. Watching them actually obliterate someone's whole life over a petty disagreement. Like pathologically lying and one by one turning people away from someone and then outright admitting to orchestrating the whole thing because they disagreed on a political issue, not a race or sexuality involved political issue, either. At that point everyone was just scared that they'd turn on them. Another one, I just have to remind how emotions work every once in a while. He's genuinely a good dude but can be pretty scary on occasion. Think Dexter, completely able to lead a normal life but out of tune with people's emotions and how he should react to them. U/Level 3 Kobold responded. It was a triple whammy. 1. After having known her for about 4 years, she cut me out of a group of friends, with zero effort to work things out. We had had a little bit of friction, so I figured it was unreasonably harsh but not sociopath level. 2. Later, she sincerely suggested I lie to people, pretend to be committed to their projects, so that they will give me things. This turned me off so much that I stopped associating with her. 3. I began to hear stories of how she treats other people. I realized that she made a habit out of befriending people in order to use them. When she was done using them or she got frustrated, she would drop them immediately. She also had some pretty odious opinions about other people, which she masked by putting on a woke front. I don't think she's necessarily a bad person, nor do I think she's a good person, but I ultimately concluded that a friendship with her isn't a real friendship. So when she reached out to me later, I was polite but didn't bother engaging. "Shit stuck in your teeth" responded. I knew there was something off about him from the day I met him. We were around 12-13s, but it took me about a year to put my finger on it. It was mostly the way he'd start sentences, honestly. Always bizarre, non sequiturs, that always had to do something with how he'd been wronged at some point in his life, and nothing to do with the active discussion. Like, we'd be talking about some movie, ask him if he had seen it, and he'd act, very poorly, as though he was lost in a daydream, and say something akin to, "What? Sorry, I was just thinking about when my stepdad was killed by that drunk driver." This went on for years. Then when he hit 18, he came into some money, and spent it all on terrible tattoos and dangerous drugs. Started showing up at our homes unannounced and then just come in and start doing shit like jumping on the couch, or screaming at the television. Seriously. He got thrown out of I don't know how many places. Then he started breaking into houses' businesses. Remarkably, he never did any time, that I know of, but my mother ran into him a few years back. He approached her in a grocery store parking lot. They hadn't seen one another in around 10 years or so. He asked her if she remembered him, and she said, "Yeah, how are you?" And he goes, "Well, I'm HIV positive, but otherwise I'm okay." He was just that kind of guy. I checked his FB later and he'd set up a GoFundMe for his treatment payments. About a week later, his mother commented, "My son does not have HIV. He's lying for attention and money." Again, GoFundMe was immediately shut down and his FB was deleted shortly thereafter. Dude was a sociopath through and through. "Infinite garbage" responded. I knew someone that I could classify as a sociopath. She would deny it to no end, but it was little things here and there until she ended up threatening to extort me and I got a restraining order. She was dating my ex's brother at the time and was very friendly with me at first. But then issues started coming up. Like her repeating something I would vent to her about to my ex's parents and getting everyone involved. They made me sit down and apologize about everything in front of everyone. It was very embarrassing. She would also make comments about my clothes and makeup. Something along the lines of "I like natural makeup more. Not trying to be out looking like a clown, and you can come to this event but please don't wear those leggings." It eventually escalated into her catfishing me. She posed as someone I used to go to school with. Created a fake Facebook page and all. Apparently she used every single thing about those conversations against me. She also hacked into my Facebook and took messages I sent to other people against me. She threatened to use all of this information against me and tell the family about it all. I took all the information and threats to court with me and was awarded with a restraining order. But that wasn't enough. She would tell old friends of mine that I was accusing them of being child molesters and other insanely horrible things. It cost me many friendships and bunch of sanity. Zenovitz responded. He'd joke around about things you really shouldn't. Except he was never really joking. Talking about doing things with children and wanting to kill animals and people. He did kill some animals, but I don't know if there was anything else. He definitely changed when he was in his senior year of high school and not for the better. "Watch this, I'm gonna stab him." Then he actually sliced a friend across his arms with a pair of scissors during a Halo LAN party, and he got so excited when he saw all the blood and had to touch the blood. We had to use a roll of paper towels to clean the victim up and he had to get stitches. Another time we were at his house and he grabbed a handgun from his mom's room and ran upstairs and put it to another friend's head and pulled the trigger 3 times. Haha, I guess it's not loaded. The crazy facial expressions and the crazy eyes I'll always remember. I stopped associating with him in high school when all this came about in his senior year and my junior year. I'm not sure how he is now, but I know he still lives nearby and works at a D&D book music video game shop. "Deleted" responded. 1. He enjoyed hooking up with drunk co-eds whom he knew had boyfriends. Like he would specifically go out of his way to hit on them, disarm them with alcohol, and he told me he enjoyed seeing their reactions the morning after when they've realized what happened. Killed 2 birds with 1 stone, as he put it. 2. He had no problem going no contact with friends or girlfriends, even me, to punish them. One time his friend sold some video games to GameStop and he took personal affront to this and ignored this friend for literal months without even telling them what the problem was because he felt he was owed them and not GameStop. This person was in my life for almost a decade and screwed around with me too, but that is a story for another day. Oh, and he would laugh at live leak videos when people would get hurt or killed. He played with a gun like one twirls a pencil for boredom. He threw his roommate's cat across a room. He'd steal food from grocery stores just to do it. He'd call me names and laugh at my distress, make me cry and have no emotion on his face. He made jokes about pubescent girls, yeah. Never able to hold down a job for long, always thought they were beneath him, changed his phone number so as to avoid getting in touch with friends, family, employer after no-showing to his job. Alcoholic and drug problems. You/Micah Meat Sweats responded. There was this guy I knew in college. He was a stupidly charming individual who looked like a male model and had successfully made friends with just about everyone on campus, including me. He was always into clubs, activities, and seemed to be just about everywhere on campus. He seemed to be the coolest dude there was. One time I went out to eat with him and a few other people after he told me he had a business proposition for me. He wanted to start a company. I was in school for filmmaking, where I would charge student actors to be in my dumb little college movies in order to give them footage for their reels. I tried to explain to him that I am the one supposed to pay the actors, not the other way around. He tried to push it until I eventually gave him a no in no uncertain terms. You'd have thought I insulted this man down to his very core. I've heard about that slipped mask thing where a sociopath gets upset and forgets to keep their mask on. This was definitely one of those moments. I thought he was going to put an ipe fork straight through my eye. Things were so uncomfortably tense until we left. Afterwards I never really spoke to him again. I think being very cool was important to him. Maybe my refusal to acknowledge his genius business idea shattered his reality for a second. I've heard that since then he has acknowledged that something might be up. You/Quiddity responded. I loved and dated one for an embarrassing number of years. I think I knew years before we broke up but just ignored my instincts. In retrospect, it is so obvious. He was very good at gaslighting. He had no enduring relationships, cycled through friends very quickly. He used his rage to intimidate people, got into many physical fights. He was a poser, acted like a tough biker, called himself a biker but didn't even own one. He lied constantly, even about insignificant things. He was completely unreliable with everyone, not just me. And he slept with many other women. You/Metagen responded. Through hundreds of hours of talking. In high school I had a kind of thesis assignment. Somehow I ended on psychopathy. As I was researching, I began to understand my friend more and more. I shared my findings with him and he was over the moon with this new label. At the time, I had escaped the terrible parts, but around 5-6 years in, things blew up. Still to this day, one of the most dramatic situations LVE ever been in. I was honestly scared for my life. More than 10 years later, I had reconnected with his brother. We went out for a beer and to catch up, and he told me his brother did eventually officially get diagnosed as a psychopath. This was 15 years after my school assignment. I look forward to never hearing from him again. You/pronouncer_thatch responded. The mask slipped. He wasn't a friend, but I worked very closely with him, and for me, that was worse as I couldn't choose the amount of time I spent with him. It was a gut feeling. He was well liked by everyone. An extrovert, cheerful and loud. But I never trusted him. He was a high-powered attorney and lobbyist. One of those competitive triathletes, very handsome, very wealthy, an overachiever. But he had a mask and it would slip from time to time. I could tell he was faking his emotions, then when no one was watching he was vile and cold. One day I heard him saying some horrible things about children. Like malicious, disgusting things in a joking manner. That confirmed it for me. I gave him a wide berth. I don't know how or when he realized I really saw him for what he was. I used to be a receptionist and he stopped by my desk, smiled this horrible, ugly smile. Just smiling and not breaking eye contact for like a minute. Then he just knocked twice on the wood like Frank Underwood from House of Cards of something. This was the day before I was leaving for a new job. He asked me where I was going to work and I lied. I didn't need this man to know anything about me. He was a very high-powered attorney who had regular meetings on C*Hill. I've also had a boss who I believe was a sociopath, a woman, and I believe my own mother was as well. My mom couldn't hide her issues though and is now pretty isolated and rejected by society. In terms of the lawyer, there are a lot of successful sociopaths and psychopaths and many of them are attracted to power positions. He was married with kids too. Hope they're okay. That man was not right. u/plenty_economy_5670 responded. In a group chat, we were posting memes and laughing about it. Then this one guy posted an entire documentary of Holocaust survivors and the fact that he saved it on his phone despite having a shitty old phone with little storage and kept it around just to laugh at it in his free time as if it was funny was just creepily disgusting and horrific. The video was at least 20 minutes long, it might have been a whole hour. Took him a full 24 hours to apologize after nobody else responded since we all stayed silent. Been trying to distance myself from him before even then. Dude dropped out of college to try to hit plat in League of Legends after a whole year and couldn't hit plat. He failed promos twice thrice. He even got fired from Starbucks forever because of tardiness, possible racism, homophobic jokes, and just being an idiot and an asshole at Starbucks. He's one of those cashiers that forcibly makes small talk with customers because he's lonely. At the end of the year, he couldn't even receive any ranked rewards because he kept calling his own team and the enemy team the N-word and F-word, being racist and homophobic and kept bringing in religion. Honestly never wanna meet this guy IRL again. Even if he comes back to our college in our senior year, he'd still be a sophomore freshman. Honestly, people like him are what's wrong with video games, they ruin everything. My mental health got better as I decided to ignore him completely in group chat and DMS and unfriended him in game. u/just-a-trublegel responded. Was a friend of a sociopath I suspected. She was great at maintaining her image, public reputation was a thing to die for. But she would also spread rumors about other people and incessantly judge others who have different views, hobbies, interests, and even looks than her. Her laughter and smile seemed fake, never reached her eyes, there was that dead yet hostile stare in her eyes, and she made me feel really bad about myself with backhanded compliments or using you language very skillfully. Nobody suspected a thing. She was always the helpful or innocent one in others' eyes, but I was almost going crazy from her behavior. She ended the friendship herself as I did not make any use of her the following years. That is when I got myself together mentally and physically and made new friends. She was also very visibly frustrated with my emotional outbursts and expressions, never stuck up for me when I was bullied by my classmates. I'm glad she ended it. I seem to be holding on to a dead end. But I cannot imagine what kind of a life she will lead, devoid of feeling and with all that pretense. It's almost scary when you see the stare. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Leave your own stories down below, I would love to read them. If you would like to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe, it helps me out greatly.